Today on Uncommon Knowledge, Your Life or Your Rights, GORE VIDAL on the war on terrorism and civil liberties. Can we win the war on terrorism without sacrificing our rights? Last fall, after the September 11th terrorist attacks, Congress enacted and President Bush signed the so-called USA Patriot Act, legislation intended to thwart the threat of domestic terrorism. Critics denounce the legislation as a dangerous expansion of government power at the expense of our civil liberties. Are they correct? Joining us today, two guests who believe they are. Robert Higgs is a senior fellow at the Independent Institute and the author of Crisis and Leviathan. Gore Vidal has been an author, playwright, essayist, and commentator on the political scene for more than 50 years. His latest book, Perpetual War for Perpetual Peace, How We Got to Be So Hated. You're talking about, when you worry about the Leviathan, the growth of the federal government, this encroachment on civil liberties, you're talking about, you're extrapolating from the Second World War and the Cold War. And the United States yesterday ain't the United States today. So far as I'm aware, nobody's making serious mention of conscription. We'll set that aside. You may disagree with that. During the Second World War, defense spending rose to 36% of GDP. Even during the 1960s, it was 11% of GDP. Today, it's 3%. Bush has announced his budget for the defense spending. If he gets everything he wants, it'll rise to 4% of GDP. Military spending is simply smaller as a proportion of all the activities going on in the Republic. We've got, during the Second World War, Cold War, government censorship, eavesdropping. Today, you have the internet, flowering of freedom of speech.
May I interrupt you?
Yes, of course. Go ahead. My point is that
it's much more than 4% of GDP.
Why is that?
Well, it's how they juggle it. I used to do once a year in the nation, I would analyze the budget. And I would not count the income from Social Security as part of the federal budget. It isn't. It's a separate trust fund. It's always counted in. So it looks like military is very little. Military is generally half to two-thirds of the budget in any given peacetime year, because you've got to count the interest on the debt, which is incurred by wars. You've got to count veterans' affairs, all those hospitals across the country. They don't count that in. They don't count in all of the ancillary things which war has brought about, the costs to the nation.
Well,
so it is an enormous amount. It's something like two-thirds of the budget goes for war or things related to past wars.
Suppose I put it to you this way then. Bush, this man engaged in a huge power grab, has proposed an increase in military spending that amounts at the very most to 1% of GDP.
I think it's a mistake to judge this military budget in terms of proportions of GDP. That means that every time the private economy grows, even though military affairs consume as many resources as before, they appear to be shrinking, because they're shrinking relative
as a
to
proportion,
the private economy.
But that's the point I'm trying to make. You're talking about the federal government as Leviathan, this huge object that's encroaching, and as a matter of fact, the private sphere is growing even more quickly. Americans are freer today than they were at this time of the Second World War.
Americans are less free. If you look at their Fourth Amendment rights today, they have none. The USA Patriot Act has, in effect, completely gutted any pretense of Fourth Amendment protection from search and seizure without warrant. The government is now at complete liberty to search virtually anything they want by waving the wand of terrorism over their efforts. And if this is not a devastating aspect of destruction of civil liberties, I'd like to know what constitutes such destruction. When the government is free to come in and search your home, search your information, tap your phone, tap your emails, at will, without even going to a judge and getting his blessing, then you are no longer living in a free country.
Well, that's not nice.
That's worse than not nice.
But it is as nothing compared to the curtailment of liberties that took place in past wars, and they all got rolled back.
We've just got started on this thing. It's going to be perpetual war.
And this isn't a war. Let us put it that way. So if they're doing this in relative peacetime with a bunch of zealous Muslims as the official enemy, I think there were about 20 of them involved in that strike, this is a power grab. And you're quite correct. I'm glad you brought that up about the Fourth Amendment has been suspended. And due process doesn't seem to make much sense at all when you read Ashcroft's latest ukases to the American people.
Last topic. What would make Gore Vidal happy?